Modern portraiture of marginalized communities, a contemporary take on a traditional genre. This course highlights the contemporary portraiture of marginalized communities across 5 two-hour lessons. Using a historical lens, this class examines both the art and artists of underrepresented populations. The lesson begins with a review of portraiture's rich history and defines what it is to be a part of a marginalized community. Subsequent classes investigate portraits both of and by for historically marginalized communities. The course is presented virtually, like you see here, via Zoom with an accompanying PowerPoint presentation, which I will present some of right now, and has many opportunities for group discussion and group reflection. At the conclusion of this course, students will be able to define portraiture and contextualize the genre throughout its role in art history. Students will attain the tools they need to recognize, evaluate, and discuss contemporary portraits. In addition, they will be more attuned to the communities that these portraits represent. What you see here is a photograph by Robert Andy Coombs, nude disabled man at the beach being held up by another guy. I'll begin with lesson 1, just an excerpt of lesson 1. We'll discuss what defines a portrait. We'll talk as a group about first inclinations and off the top of the student's head, how they would define a portrait, and then look closer at what 2 institutions say about portraiture and portraits, both Wikipedia and Merriam-Webster. We'll also discuss what comes to mind when we think of a portrait, what image pops into your head first, and why. Present, I have 2 very popular examples of portraits: Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa and Vermeer's Girl with the Pearl Earring. And then we'll segue into a history of portraiture and its role throughout art history. Here we have an ancient Egyptian example and then a Roman Egyptian example. Lesson 1 will conclude with the discussion of marginalized communities. We'll define what a marginalized community is and the 4 groups that we will discuss in more detail throughout the course. We'll also talk about why it is important for these communities to be visible and represented in art. And then I have outlined the rest of the lessons. Lesson 2, Black portraiture. Specifically, we'll talk about the artists that portrayed the Obamas, Kinde Wiley and Amy Sherrod. Lesson 2, we have Indigenous portraiture, specifically from First Peoples of North America and Australia. Lesson 4, representing all body types. So we'll look at some artists that are representing different spectrums of body types, including the art of Shona McAndrew and Shug McDaniel. Lesson 5, we'll be looking at artists who are depicting disabled bodies, specifically the photography of Joey Solomon and Robert Andy Coombs, who are friends in real life. And with that, the conclusion of this course, students will be armed with the knowledge of what these communities look like and how they are represented by artists who are a part of these communities and identify within them. And I think right now, more than ever, identifying and understanding underrepresented and often invisible communities is very important. It helps us all create empathy and understanding. It allows us to put ourselves in someone else's shoes. And that ability makes all the difference in the world. So these lessons are increasingly important. Thank you for your time.